Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to extend our approval flow reminder video which I created a couple of months back, and that video, that tutorial was used to send the reminders for the approval flow if the approver has not approved the request. And the limitation which that video was having, because it can't send the each and every individual approver's reminders. So what that means is, if my item or let's say one project item is waiting for approval from 3 project managers, then it will be sending the reminders to all the 3 managers irrespective of whether one of them or 2 of them approved it. So today what we are going to do is, we are going to create that reminder flow for each and every individual approver. So let's say if 3 approvers are there, if one has approved it and 2 did not, then it will only send the reminders to of those 2, not the approved one. So that we are going to create. So for that I would be just going to my SharePoint list again to show you. I'm having this project list where I capture the approvers, and I have the response column to save the response at last, and one column is sent for approval, which will decide whether this item is ready for approval or not. So when I say yes, then the approval flow get triggered on it, and then obviously status. So now we are going to our flow to create the new flow. So I'm going to my flows and creating a new one from instant, skipping it for now. So my flow would be triggering on when item is created or modified, and I'll connect this to my SharePoint list which I just showed you. Alright, so in next step I would be deciding, because I want, if only the item is set to be sent for approval, this checkbox, then only my flow get proceed to the next actions. Then I'll just simply add one simple condition, and in this condition I'll just choose my send for approval value along with the status. So I'll use the status column. First of all, if status is open, that means it's a new item, and along with it has that send for approval column set as true, then only my flow get to the next step. And if no, then it should be just simply terminate. I mean, just stop that flow, because we don't want any further action on it, and we'll just say succeed and just save it. So in the yes section, in yes part, we did not do anything because we want that to happen in next step. So let me just collapse that, and now we'll add a next step. So for sending the reminders for individual approvers, we would require a couple of things to be judged. I mean, like, we have to decide, we have to create few variables to and set those variables so that we can use them later on. So I'm just going to create one variable. So I'll use initialize variable, and in initialize variable I'll just because I want the approval list first of all, so I'll just say approver list, and what that means is, I'll just show you. So for example, this item is having 2 approvers, so I'll be creating one string where I'll be capturing this first approver and the second approver as a semicolon separated. So that's why I've initialized it. I just rename it that approver list variable, and in next step I'll be creating another variable for checking whether we have to stop reminders or not. So I'll just name that as stop reminder. It will be just string, and I'm going to tell you why I'm using that string. I'm renaming that as a stop reminder variable, Okay, and in the next step I would have to determine that how many number of approvers are there, because we are going to loop in through the create task activity, the create approval task activity. So for that we have to determine that how many number of approvers are there. So I'll just initialize one variable, initialize, and this variable I'll just say number of approvers, and this would be type of integer. Alright, and one last variable which will be to capture responses. So I'll use another variable. So as I said in my last video in approval flow with reminders, that if we would like to send the reminders for each and every individual approvers, then it has to be a bit tricky, with some logic. So that's why we have to have all the places, all the things in place. First of all, response, and it will be again of string type. I just rename that as all responses variable, and the above one as what we did is number of approvers, number of approvers variable. It's better to name these actions so that we can quickly determine what it used to do. So as a next step, we have to actually first of all determine that how many number of approvers are there, and as well as construct that approval list variable string. So I'll just use set variable, and this set variable I'll just instead of set variable we'll be using append variable, because we'll be appending the approval list names over here. So I'll just use append to string, and this string would be this approver list, and with what it should append? It should append with approver emails. I'm just using emails. Now you can see when I selected emails, it automatically binded up and added up this apply to each loop. So I got all my approvers here, and I'm appending that as approver email with semicolon separated. Alright, so in next step I will increment this number of approver variable, because I would need to determine the number of approvers as well to capture the last, to determine that all the approval levels has been done. So I'm just using number of approvers, and I'm incrementing that by 1, because every time when this loop goes, if these are 3, then it will just increment that variable from 0 to 1, then 2, 3, in that way. Okay, so this apply to each is done, and now again, because as I said that we would be creating the task under apply to each. So the simple way is I'll be just using one set variable action, and let it automatically create apply to each around it, as we did in previous step. So in this set variable, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply use set variable, and I'll just set stop reminder, and I'll just initialize some value for this. So let's say stop reminder for, I'm just initializing it, I'm not adding up any names to it. So later on I'll tell you what the logic is to have this variable in place. So it's just setting the variable, or initializing the variable, you can say. And with this, now I'll just say the next active action is start and wait for an approver. So I'll just add this one, and in this I'll just choose approval. I mean, you have few options to choose from: approve, reject, everyone must approve, everyone first to respond, because as I said, we will be creating each and individual task in a loop, so you can select any one of these. So I'm just choosing everyone must approve. And in title you can say kindly take action on, and you can specify the title field from your dynamic content. And in the assign to, we are going to use the approver email, and when I do that, it automatically bind up that in apply to each. And I'll just drag this one, because I'll just drag this my set variable activity, and I'll just rearrange it, because I want to create the parallel actions from here. So now, because as I said, this start and approval, it automatically bind it up in a loop, and I'll just go to the setting of this loop, because we don't want the approval in a sequential fashion. If I'm just adding, let's say, two approvers, both of the tasks should be created concurrently, parallelly, so not like in a sequential fashion. So that's why I'm changing the setting of it, apply to each, clicking on these three dots, going to settings and saying concurrency control is on, and degree of parallelism is 20. So 20 approvers you can handle. I mean, 20 number of looping you can handle in a same parallel way. So that's why, like, that's how, like, it will just create both the tasks for the approvers in parallel fashion. So now, as I said, we have created a task, but now comes the logic to send the reminders and or to stop the reminder. So over here I'll just insert a step and add a parallel branch. So now you can see in one branch I have this start and wait for an approval, and in other branch what we are going to do is we are going to use do until activity action, and in that action we have to define, like, this loop should be working till what condition. So as you remember, we have created this stop reminder variable. Now that is the time to use this variable. So I'm just saying stop reminder, and you must be seeing that this is disabled, and for our logic we have to enable it. So I'll just click on the edit in advanced mode and click back, edit in basic mode. It will make that enable. So I'm going to this if my stop reminder contains the name of or email of that approver, then it should not, it should I mean, it should get out of this do until loop. Otherwise it's keep under this do until and send the reminders. And you must be wondering that from where we got this stop reminder contains. So in this parallel branch, after waiting for this approver, we will set up our stop reminder variable. We'll append to variable which is stop reminder. Is that append to string variable, and in stop reminder we will set the email of that currently approved person. I'll just do that. So now you can see we have added up, and you can just, for the sake of proper readability, you can add the semicolon. So we have updated this stop reminder with that email address. So what it does actually is, whenever we are creating one task, so it will be in hung state until unless that person actually takes any action. Then only if that person takes action, then only it goes to the next step. So that means is when the person took action, whether it's approve or reject, then it will execute this action, and after executing this action, this stop reminder will append the current user's email address over here. So what that become is, so let me show you with example. So it will be like this: stop, let's say if I am approving it, then put stop reminder for, it will take like Krishna Sharma, the string will be like this once if I took action on my this task. And because this works in parallel, as I said, we have set the parallelism for this apply to each. Then for the other user, other approver, so let's say it's XYZ, so let's say it's XYZ on Microsoft.com. so this string would not append because the task, the current situation of that task is still in hung state because that person has not taken any approval. So the string, current string would be only this one. And for me, I mean, because it works in parallel, it will check that stop reminder contains my approver email. That means I have taken the action on my task. I don't need any more reminders for my current task. Only reminders would be sent out for this XYZ person. So here comes the logic, here lies the logic. So this is how we can do. And in the next step, because we have to like make a decision till what number of steps our flow should keep on waiting before writing to the all responses. So let's first of all do this, complete this do until one. So in the change limits is an important part because these are the limits, after how many hours or count this do until will action will stop working. So because our approver can be there for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so and this is timing out in just 1 hour. So you may be wondering, while after creating it, does, oh, my do until had stopped sending the reminders, and the reason would be this one. So you have to set the timeout condition. So this is PT1S, that means after 1 hour it will be timeout. So you have to change it to 720 hour. That is my desired limit actually, because 720 hours is 30 days, and you can just change that to count 600 counts after 600. I mean, like, it's a safe limit, so you can keep it 60 as well, but 600 is a safe limit, or 100 or 200, whatever you want. So we have done that. Now in the next step, we have to use a send email, so that we can send out the reminders. So you can just simply choose either this one or the send email with Outlook. So I mean, like, it's your choice. And in approver email, in email you have to choose the approver email name whom you want to send the reminder, and in the title, gentle reminder on, and then you can just add up the title from dynamic content. Please take, in body you can write please take action as SAP as is due by. So there is one more thing. So if you have any due date, if in your list, if you are specifying like reminder should get out after due date or 1 day prior to due date, then you have to do some calculation in this before this do until. So you have to calculate that, okay, so we have to send the weekly reminders before the due date. Then you have to do a calculation, the due date minus 7 days, and then you can just trigger this email off. So right now I'm not doing that calculation because it can vary. I mean, like, the logic can vary to the requirement to requirement. So I'm just leaving that as is. I'm just saying to ASAP. Alright, and after that I just put a delay so that it can keep on waiting for a particular schedule. For example, 1 day, or let's say like 2 days after sending one reminder. If still that is not complete, then it will again go to this do until loop, and it will check that stop reminder got contains that approver email name or not. If that contains, that means it's already executed this branch, so that will just simply exit from this do until. And if it does not contain, then it will go to this send email, it will send a reminder, and then again get to a pause state till this time. So because we are doing testing, so I'll just keep that for 1 minute so that we can't keep on waiting for reminders. So I've just changed that to 1 minute for testing purpose. So we are done with this right branch. I'm now going to the left branch again. Now the next step comes, as we have to capture the responses, the outcome. So I'll just use another append to string action, and under my this all response variable, I'll just append the outcome. So as this task start and wait for approval gives me outcome, approve or reject, so I'm capturing that. So now I got this response, so I'll just name that append to response variable, and this previous one I'm just saying append to stop reminder variable. Alright, so now we have set this reminders, we have captured the responses, and in the next step we have to use one condition where we have to determine that, okay, so now all the approvers has taken actions, so we have to mark this flow with the final response and as well as terminate or close the flow. So for that we have to use one condition. So in this condition, okay, so because we got the number of approvers, but we are not actually using any index to validate that index is equal to number of approvers, then we should go to the final state. So before this apply to each, we have to set variable or initialize variable as index, and this would be of integer again. I'm just renaming that as index variable, and now I'll just come back to my this condition. I'll just use condition, and index variable is equal to my number of approvers. That means it has reached to the final number of approvers, then it will do something. So before that I have to increase the index, increment the index, so that I can make a judgment that yes, my index variable. So I need to just increase, increment variable index, so it will just increment it by 1. So let me just walk through this. Let's say there are 3 approvers, then for first time it creates this task, wait for it, and again it will create another task and wait for it, and the task will again wait for it. So once the approval 1 has approved it, it will just execute these actions and increment our variable as 1. And once the second approver approved it, and then it will proceed with these actions, then it will increment our variable with 2, and the third one it will increment as 3. So now with this condition we'll just check, let's say it's all approved, then index would be 3 equal to number of approver 3, then we can finalize, then we can decide that okay, so this is our last step, we have to write to our response column back and then just close the workflow. So in this if condition I'm just adding one update item, and in this update item I choose the same item. Where is that my list? demo list. I'll choose the ID of the same item which we are working on, and title is just title from dynamic, and I'll just status I'll just set. So yeah, we have to determine whether it's approved or rejected. So all the approvals are done, but a state we still have not determined. So I'm just saying approved, and but how to determine this whether it's done, it should be approved or not. So prior to that, in this condition as well, we have to add up one small condition. So I know it's a lot of conditions, but this is how this is because it's a complex one. So we have to look from all responses, and if anything contains reject, that means the item has to be updated with reject. So this item which we were updating is for approved, and the same way we have to update an item for reject. Update item, and we have to again find the list ID from dynamic ID, and in responses we can just simply use all responses, and the status value we have to mark because it's a rejected side, and we have to say rejected. So that's how you can just update. We made a decision, like if any of the approver actually rejected it, then it should get to the rejected state. If all the approvers have approved it, it would not contain rejecting, then it will be marked as approved. So this is how we have finally decided. So we can just rename that condition to check if response contains reject keyword, right? So, and earlier condition we used to check whether all approvers have taken action. So that means our approver has taken action. Right. So we got this, we have ended up in this, and finally once everything is over, we have to just save this. And so this is showing some warning. So let's see what is that. Action in the flow may result in infinite trigger. So this saying, because we have used this apply to each, and we are comparing this one between these, so we have to make sure that index should be equal to number. So this condition should work, otherwise it will keep on looping up in this loop. So this is just a warning, so we can just ignore it, it's better. And I'm just renaming this flow as approver flow with individual reminders, because in our last video, in this one, we have already seen how we can collectively send the reminders, but for individual users, this is the logic we have to make in place. So I'm just saving it. Title is required. Okay, so we have not set up the title in update condition. Okay, this one. All right, now saving it. It got saved. So let's do a test run. And before that, one small thing, because we have just, so in the first step we are checking that if status is open and true, and this is how it should work, this is how it should trigger. So after this step itself, we have to update the item, because with the send approval to no, because every time it will just keep on triggering this stuff, this flow, whenever we make any update. So let's just update before updating variables. Let's use this update item once more, and in this item we'll just use the same ID of the current record, and title we'll just use title, and under this send for approval as no, and this one we should just set that as in progress, because we have to set up the condition, set up the status value as in progress, otherwise it will keep on having that open status. Alright, so we have that in place, and I'm just saving it. And these are warnings we are getting because of that action, the apply to each action. So let's try to run this and let's try to test this one. So I'm just creating one item, task project, and in the task project I'm saying task project one, in approvers I'm using my name and my colleague's name. And for triggering this one we have to send for approval as yes, and this current status should be open. I'm just saving it and going back to this flow, and it may take 30 to 50 seconds, so let's pause here for it. Okay, so it did run. So if I just click on that flow, so it has ran successfully. We'll just see what it has executed. So it's must waiting in this waiting task, because we have created task for 2 users, and under action items for approvals we should be seeing it. So kindly take an action on task project which we just created. So it created task for me. I can see that as currently logged in user, requester is my name because I created this one, and under the send we must be seeing the task for other user as well. So one task is created for this person as well. So we'll just go to the mail just to see what we are seeing here. So this is a task which we got, and shall we wait for 1 minute to, okay, so we got this one reminder because I have not taken any action. And let's say if I'm just approving my task, then I should not get any reminder after this task completion. So I'll just wait for it. And in response, I mean, let's just go back to our Power Automate. So this was our flow. So ideally what has happened till now is in apply to each, because I have taken the action and these all branches got executed for me. So this do until should be exited for me. Only the other person which have not taken any action, that person would only see the reminders. And one thing as well, as I said earlier as well, so if you want to do any calculations on this due date, then you are you are open to do that and set the logic based on your calculation. So it should send the email notification. Let's say the first notification should be sent out after 1 day of creation. Then just make that condition that it should send out the notification after 1 day, and otherwise this logic would work well for you if you don't have any due dates for you. So I believe that's a 30 minutes video, but hopefully a worth one. So for today, if you have any questions, queries, then drop me in comments. I would happy to help you. And if somebody wants this sample, so I'll just try to give that sample to them. So that's it for today. Thank you.